Tonight, America faces a crisis. Gas prices have increased 115% since the arrival of hope and change.
It's unbelievable, out of control.
Gasoline has soared 64 cents in the last 4 months.
These gas prices, they're out of hand. Something has to be done.
In at least 10 states are paying more than $4 a gallon. Meanwhile, the White House is making excuses.
Is the overall goal to get our price?
No, the overall goal is to decrease our dependency on oil.
They're refusing to tap our abundant natural resources. And nobody knows this better than Sarah Palin, whose state of Alaska is home to vast untapped resources. Tonight, together, we'll explain how President Obama is making the crisis worse. And we'll also reveal my secret plan to combat rising gasoline prices. I offer to show it to the president. I offer to share with him a way to secure his own re-election.
I'll open this envelope for you. It'll drop gasoline prices $1 immediately.
But the phone never rang. The administration never called. And as a result, you are paying at the pump. Good evening, everybody. I'm Eric Bolling, and I'm joined tonight by the former governor of Alaska and Fox News contributor Sarah Palin. We're joined this evening by a studio audience because every single person in this room, both on camera and off, has been impacted by the increasing price of gasoline. Tonight, we're going to show you just how we got into this mess, how the Obama administration is failing to address it, and we're going to share with you some of our ideas on how to fix it. We want to start tonight by hearing from you in our audience.
So glad you all are here. I'm so passionate about energy. Eric is, and I know that so many of you understand that inherent link between energy and prosperity and energy and security. So thank you for being participants in this. And as Eric explained in the intro, price of gasoline affecting every aspect of our lives. Who's to blame? Who do you think is to blame?
How many think Obama? Raise your hands. How many think not? Say not Obama. Anyone? Anyone? So President Obama not getting it done on the energy policy.
So instead of just throwing stones, instead of just sitting on the sidelines griping about it, we together will propose to our president ideas, solutions. These really work. A true all-of-the-above approach we'll talk about.
Okay, who has a story? How has gasoline affected you? How's it affected your driving habits, your play, your work? Anyone have a story? Anybody? Anybody? Here we go, right here. So what's your name?
Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Hi. I drive 52 miles a day back and forth to work. And I spend an average of about $140 a week on gas. It has limited my social life completely. Quite often I don't have lunch because I can't afford lunch because I have to put gas in my car to get to work. I know people, friends that have gone down to one family car and they just drop each other off because they can't keep up with the gas prices.
We had a couple of students in the audience. Who's got a student right here? Okay, so can I hear what's your story?
I'm a college student right now at Hofstra University, and many times before heading home to see my family in New Jersey, I'd actually fill up just enough to make it across the state lines and get back to maybe, sometimes 50 cents, even 80 cents less than what I'm paying in New York State.
The two states are adjacent to each other, and in one state you may pay 80 cents a gallon more just by crossing the state line.
Just by crossing the state line. And on weekends, leisure activities with my college buddies, doesn't happen much often anymore. So it's definitely affecting us.
Okay, what about, there was another, go ahead. What's your name?
And I commute to school 4 days a week, so it's pretty much the equivalent to an increase in my tuition. So it's been really difficult. I already work 2 jobs, and now it's becoming hard to pay for school.
And what about any small business owners here who have seen impacts on the price of goods?
Well, I'm sales.
What's your name?
Nancy LaCourte, and I drive for a living, and I have to go to see customers every day of the week. This has totally impacted the way I do things, and it stopped me from doing things for my son who's in college. It's affected how I do things for him because I can't get him back and forth. I can't afford to continue to do it this way.
Who's a little mad?
I'm very.
Who's a lot mad?
A lot.
Is there anyone who's okay with paying $4 a gallon?
Is there anybody who is not anticipating that the price will only increase until we do something about the problem, until answers are given to the White House and they receive those answers and they finally implement some of the solutions that we'll be talking about? You have to be aware of that the prices will only increase. Is that right?
Absolutely right. I mean, everybody's suffering from NASCAR Nation with lower attendance. The drivers can't get sponsors. and every shopper squeezed more than any time since the gas-related recession from 1973 to 82.
We're gonna by the way, guys, this is our panel of experts up front. We have a refiner, we have a think tank economist, we have a retail expert, we have another think tank economist and a scientist, right? And we have a producer, a oil and gas and fracker right here, and we have the American Petroleum Institute represented here, and they're going to back up and they're going to talk to us. We're going to work them in and out. We'll get into it. One more story. Anyone? Go ahead, sir.
I'm in the restaurant industry, so I've seen an increase in price of goods, but also people are spending less because there's less disposable income.
In your restaurant?
Correct. They're not coming as much
So
as
it's it costs
so
your
it's a
restaurant more
two-pronged
to put the food on the plate, and people, once they get there, but they're not buying a bottle of wine.
They're not spending as much. Correct.
Sure. All right, that's a great segue, because in the next segment, we're going to talk about the price of gasoline increasing, causing all those products over on that table over there. We're going to get to it in a second. Governor?
You know, what you're going to find, too, is that the price of a barrel of oil affects every part of our life. Petroleum products are all around us, and this is affecting. So if you think that high gas prices are only affecting your filling up at the tank, you got another thing coming when we show this.
Right, you're paying the price every time these big rigs fill up. We'll tell you all about it, and later we're going to unveil my secret plan to drive the price of gasoline down at the pump. We'll be back. At some point or another, pretty much everything you own spent some time on a truck. So the high fuel price doesn't just affect you standing at the gas pump, you're paying the price every time a trucker does also. We send our cameras out to see just how much it's affecting even truckers. Take a look.
Very expensive. It has to end. It has to be lowered.
It's horrible, you know. Not enough work and expensive prices and fuel.
I'm not making any money. I'm losing money.
People die. They don't want to drive anymore.
Sometimes it's not enough to cover, you know, the expense of this thing. The way it is, I might have to go about park the truck and work for somebody else.
I have a trucking company here in Jersey City, and the fuel prices are kind of getting a little out of hand nowadays, and it's hard to make ends meet. You got to pay $5,000 to $6,000 a week for fuel on top of all your other expenses. It's making things hard. I mean, you can only really charge your customers a certain amount for fuel surcharge, and it doesn't really, you know, really add up.
I'm gonna be selling my truck pretty soon, so it's not. We're not making any money.
It's the end user that's actually paying the extra money for whatever services or products we're moving. So it makes it harder on everybody. It's not just me as being the trucker. It's the customers. It's the end user that's also suffering.
It affects you at the market, your clothing, in every way possible you can imagine. You know, winter time, fuel. You know, you need fuel to keep you warm, and it's horrible. You know.
It's extra money that they have to spend for products that normally wouldn't cost as much. So it adds up quick.
We're spending too much money on the fuel, and with the money that you taking back, it's not enough.
This kind of, prices, we're not going anywhere.
Can't survive in this day and age. It's too much money. Something has to be done.
You're right, something has to be done. Hang on to your trucker's hat until something is done. Things are going to get worse, especially when we get into that busy driving season. Now, you may not know exactly how much high fuel prices impacts your life. It is dramatic. We're going to show you some examples here.
Let's start down here, Governor. Girls' apparel. How much you think? How's this? Up 8.9% in 2 years.
In 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Airline tickets up 4.5% in 2
All this
years.
food, everything here has at one point or another pretty much been on a truck.
In one way, shape, or form, if it's grown in California or Florida and trucked up here to New York, New Jersey area, it's been on a truck for a long time, right?
That's right. Look at eggs. Look at eggs. It's 6.4%.
6.4% increase in eggs in 2 years.
Yeah.
Potatoes, 7.4% increase.
Bacon, 8.2% increase. Ice cream, Eric, your ice cream.
Do anyone like ice cream? Anyone eat ice cream in there? Anyone have an ice cream story? Do you not buy ice cream because it's gone up? Do you even know it's gone up? Does anyone not realize how much things have gone up?
We watch the sales and we buy stuff when it's on sale, and we didn't used to do that as regularly before the recent price hikes.
Well, you will, as you see more of these examples too, 9% increase, 9.2% increase in milk. Oh, wait till you get
We're getting the coffee.
The beef, the veal. I was just for caribou, and you know, those of us who want to feed our kids organic protein that's wrapped in fur, not cellophane, 11.5% increase. But you know what? The price of fuel even impacts our ability to hunt. You know, we fuel up our four-wheelers, our snow machines, our trucks to go out there and hunt. You have to weigh the cost now on that. Coffee,
Here it is.
Your coffee.
Oh, wait, let's. Who thinks coffee went up 10%? More? More? How much? 19.3%. Now this is the one that's going to get you. This is the one. Hey, any moms out here? Any moms grocery shopping every week? Peanut butter.
Peanut butter, and I've been making school lunches for 20 years now. Peanut butter sandwiches, 27.2% increase. This was $4. A little jar of peanut butter, $4. Yeah.
2 years. We're talking 2 years. Any stories? Anyone notice it in the grocery aisle? Sir, in the back.
Farmer that's growing that isn't making any more money though.
Why is that?
Why is that? We're paying over $5 for fuel.
Are you a farmer?
I am a farmer.
Okay.
I am a farmer. I'm not a produce farmer, but I am a farmer. Our trucks are paying $5 for fuel a gallon, getting 5-6 miles to the gallon because not only because of the fuel prices, our trucks are now environmentally safe. And that's another problem. It brought down our gas mileage from 10 miles a gallon down to 5 miles a gallon.
Okay, what about one of our experts? Why is this happening, guys? Denny.
One thing I can tell you for sure is that my company had a fleet of trucks. And at the current gas price today, the increased cost all in to move those trucks is about 25% increase in cost. And if your margins are not 25%, not very many are, that means you are going to lose money. My concern is this problem is going to start to perpetuate because some of these truckers are going to quit hauling.
All right. Hey, what about our refiner there, John? Are you guys, the refiners? Are you guys killing it? Are you making tons and tons of money?
We're just making our normal margin. The key is the environmentalists have to stop hurting America. We have to get back to worrying about getting more jobs in America, getting more production in America, and transfer, instead of buying 9 million barrels a day overseas, buy less and get the wealth back in America and stop with all the nonsense.
Quickly?
The thing is, free markets work, but over the years we've been pushing the free out of the free market when it comes to energy, intruding with the government in more and more parts of the energy sector, and that tends to drive up costs. And so there are things they could do, regulatory streamlining, that would actually increase production, and yet more and more governments are not trying to increase production, or they're very inefficient at it because governments aren't as efficient as.
All right, one more show of hands. Who's really mad about the cost of food going up with the price of gasoline? All right, Governor. All right, up next, what is the White House doing about all this? Anything at all, we'll tell you. And for weeks, I've said, I've got the solution. I wasn't bluffing. My secret plan to bring the price of oil and gas and the nightmare to an end. The price of oil and gas is going to come down. That's still to come on Paying at the Pump.
We rely on it to get us to work, to run our businesses, to harvest our food, to heat our schools. And there's an oil and gasoline footprint on virtually everything we do. Oil and gasoline matter to us a lot. Since President Obama took office, gasoline is up over $2 per gallon. That translates to nearly $500 billion of our hard-earned wealth stripped from Main Street Americans and deposited into the bloated bank accounts of Middle Eastern sheiks and leftist dictators like Ahmadinejad in Iran, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, and Putin in Russia. So why would the Obama administration ignore a massive and unprecedented increase in gasoline prices? There's only one answer. It's because they have no answers. Listen to the man in charge of our energy policy, Energy Secretary Stephen Chu.
Chevy Volt, do you drive one?
No, I don't own a car at the moment.
In throwing the cost of gasoline at the pump, do you give yourself an A-?
I would say I would give myself a little higher.
They give themselves an A? Gas is up 115%. Prices for everything are skyrocketing. Food, clothing, airline tickets. yet they give themselves an A. Denial, delusional, or both. It's an election year. You'd think they would be more concerned. You'd think they'd have some studies, some research, some solutions. Here's what all the president's men came up with to solve our dependence on foreign oil.
There are things that you can do individually, though, to save energy. Making sure your tires are properly inflated. Getting regular tune-ups, you could actually save just as much. Alfie, if we can figure out how to make energy out of that, we'll be doing all right.
President Obama, Secretary Chu, EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson, and Secretary of the Interior Ken Salazar. Just stop. Stop and listen for the next few minutes. Listen, learn, implement these ideas, and you may save the middle class hundreds of billions of dollars. You may bring prosperity back to America. Ignore it, however, at your own political peril.
Jeez, do you see, Eric? This is part of that fundamental transformation of America that we were promised during the campaign, to increase the price of energy in America. And now these bogus claims about America not even having the resources available to us.
Are they listening, Gov?
Well,
are they in the White House right now watching this program and listening, taking notes maybe?
That's the question. Why are they not listening? Because we have experts here in this room. We have everyday moms and dads and students and business owners with common sense ideas on how to provide solutions to the energy challenges in America.
What do we have? We have experts here. Can I?
Reagan was here. You know what he would say? President Obama, stop destroying the oil industry in the United States.
Sure. API, American Petroleum Institute. Anything we said that's wrong here so far?
No. As a matter of fact, the policy that we see is a policy to tax the industry more. And you don't need a study, and we do have a study. Congressional Research Service looked at this and said, if you bring these new taxes on, it'll increase gasoline prices and it'll reduce energy independence. So you can go in that direction, or you can grow the tax base, grow the resource base, increase the jobs, and increase that energy security. And it's a very clear, very sharp choice. We have a lot of opportunities in this country to go for energy that we're not going for. And we certainly have the prices are high enough. So the only thing we can do as a nation is look to our supply, look to our demand. What can we do to affect that change? And it can have an impact not just on us, but on the price that everybody pays around the globe. If we can have the opportunity to bring these resources to the market, there is a lot there, and we really, really would like...
There is a lot there. There is a lot there, and it just takes political will. We have the manpower. We have the resources. We have the technology. It just takes the political will. Now, when we hear these claims that there isn't enough resource, and yet we're not given the allowance to even get out there and explore, what's the answer there? What do you propose that the President, the White House do there?
Well, Governor, we've had rigs leaving the Gulf ever since President Obama put the moratorium in place in the Gulf after the oil spill. We've had the Western Gulf shut off, the Atlantic shut off, parts of Utah, Montana shut off, Alaska, as you know. The drilling, the companies want to drill, that the reserves are there. Right now, we're not being allowed to be able to look for our own energy needs, and then the regulations on top of that makes it more expensive to use the fuel we are
Governor, there's no oil in Alaska. There's not much oil.
And don't even get me started, man. In fact, the next segment, that's what we're going to talk about, is just that little corner of our world, what Alaska has to provide. But we hear these claims from our president now that, heck, nothing to worry about. Move on, production's up. Is production up?
Production's up, but it's not.
Is it due to the White House policies that production is up?
The White House has done everything they can to stifle production on the lands that they control, every inch of it. Where production is up, it's on state and private lands. And the funny thing is, they always say, well, if we start drilling today, it'll be 10 years before it comes to market. That means the oil coming up now is 10 years ago in its origins. He can't claim that.
Has anyone heard President Obama say that we use 20% of the world's oil, but we only have how much? 2% of the world's reserves? Can we throw up that chart, guys? I've been thinking this is chart number 3. This is from the Department of Energy. This is their study. There's that 2%, that little red dot way at the tippy top there. What's underneath it are technically recoverable barrels, barrels of oil shale and barrels of undiscovered resources. Governor,
well,
you have a lot more.
you know, he plays this game of semantics, and he talks about the subset, this 2% of reserves, and it has to do with technical recovery and economic recovery. But no, God has created underfoot for us, for man's responsible use, these untold trillions of cubic feet of natural gas and billions of barrels of oil for our use responsibly to secure our union. They're here in America. We should be tapping into them. We'll talk about just that corner of the U.S., Alaska, and what we have to offer.
In the meantime, where's my driller? Where's my drill? How do we know how much oil and gas we have? Do we know how much is there? Are we sure that there's not a huge find waiting to be found somewhere? I don't know, Texas, Kansas.
A quick example, Eric. 5 years ago, natural gas prices were off the charts, record highs, okay? Because they thought we were running out and they said we didn't have the reserves. What that did was bring capital to the market and drillers kicked in gear. Fortunately, a lot of the gas was underlying private lands and we didn't have to rely on federal lands. In 5 years, we're now at a surplus. 5 years. Can we do the same thing with oil? Yes. First thing we have to do is to get the government and the people in this country to recognize that those minerals belong to the taxpayer. They don't belong to the White House. They don't belong to Congress. They belong to the taxpayer, and we should have a right to extract from it.
And you're talking supply economics too, supply side, and we're going to talk more about that also, because yes, natural gas prices down because finally we have the supply to meet some demand.
Exactly, and that's coming up next. Governor's going to break it all down for us coming up. I offered the President Obama an answer, but shockingly, he never called. My secret plan to fix our oil problem, that's coming up right after the governor breaks down the natural resource issue.
Welcome back to Pain at the Pump. There is a way to ease your pain at the pump with our own domestic resources. But you know, our president has refused to explore even my very own state because of what he calls environmental concerns. Now, are those concerns really valid? It's the sort of thing that may be tough to understand unless you've seen it for yourself. So not so long ago, my husband Todd and I, we took Fox's grid of ancestry to the center of the controversy. In the 50s, oil was discovered and the Navy set aside a petroleum reserve. The NPRA was set aside for development of oil and gas. That was back in the 50s, and yet that unit, that land, still hasn't really been touched then. And then in 1960, even more oil was discovered and ANWR was created. It's a huge unit, 20 million acres. It was set aside for wilderness, for refuge, and in 1980 it was expanded for oil and gas development, the coastal plain, the very tippy top of ANWR. So we have these huge swaths of land, 20 million acres in one unit, 19 million acres in another unit, that reservoirs have been proven to hold oil and gas, just haven't got to tap them yet.
That pipeline is pretty amazing in terms of, I mean, it was quite controversial, going back to even the vote. Spiro Agnew, the vice president, had to break the tie and had to vote in order to get this pipeline.
Yeah. And can you imagine if that pipeline would not have been built at its peak, supplying 20% of the domestic supply of energy? The pipeline isn't as full today. It went from 1.5 million barrels a day flowing down now to about 700,000 barrels a day. We need more oil in that pipeline. The only way we're going to get more oil in there is for the oil companies to have that allowance in different areas like MPRA and ANWR to drill, fill up the pipeline again. A lot of the naysayers, they've never been up here. They've never seen Cruda. They've never seen ANWR. They believe these bogus, phony, extreme environmentalist fundraiser pictures of what ANWR is all about. Out of the 20 million acres set aside in ANWR, there is wilderness, there is refuge area, there are some more beautiful, more scenic landscapes to look at, but the 1002 area, the 1.5 million acres that have been set aside for the oil and gas development, including the 2,000 acres that are needed for the footprint for the development, that's the barren remoteness that you're looking at. I'll tell you what, Americans have been sold a bill of goods when it comes to what is actually up there in ANWR and how much it can supply the rest of the U.S. Joining us now is Rayola Dular. She is a senior economic advisor at the American Petroleum Institute. We're going to talk about supply and the potential that we have here in America. Not just ANWR, and by the way, that little footprint that we need to explore more in ANWR, 2,000 acres out of the 20 million acres that's been set aside. It's the size, the footprint of LAX, the size of an airport that we need to get in there and explore more.
I know, it's fantastic in terms of the amount of energy it could bring to the market. As you were saying, it was about 30 years worth from Saudi Arabia alone. You add that, plus what we have offshore, 87% of the acreage offshore in the United States is off limits to development. You take that, you take what we have in ANWR, you take what we have in Alaska, add that also to the Keystone Pipeline. Now, if we got that, just that one pipeline built from Canada to 1,700-mile pipeline from Canada to our refiners in Port Arthur, Texas, that would give us about 830,000 barrels a day, which is half of what we currently import from the Persian Gulf. So you add the pipeline, you add that acreage, throw in our biofuels that we know we're going to have about 10% of our liquid fuel needs will come from biofuels. In a dozen years, you could, if you wanted a plan, be fairly self-sufficient in our oil needs. Now, we're still going to be part of the global marketplace. But imagine if that global marketplace had 4 or 5 million more barrels a day from this hemisphere. And then add the jobs, 1 million new jobs readily, easily.
Good-paying
the
jobs.
tax revenue would boggle, it would really boggle your mind. It's over $127 billion in new tax revenue within about a dozen years or so. Now instead, what's happening is we're seeing this less production, as we were talking about, on federal lands, a lot less. Just in the Gulf of Mexico, 230,000 barrels less production last year. And that alone, we could have $5 billion in government revenue from the lost production we're having. And instead, what we're hearing is, let's tax the industry more. We are a heavily taxed industry. We don't have any subsidies.
Well,
we have no subsidies
We're
whatsoever.
also hearing, let's rely more on Brazil. Let's offer to be their best customer. That's absolutely ridiculous that we are so reliant on these foreign regimes to supply energy for us. We talk about, we mentioned in the clip there, the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. It's pumped between 15 and 18 billion barrels of fuel, of crude, into our market. And look at President Obama's teammate, Joe Biden. He's one of just a few senators who years ago in the 70s actually voted against that pipeline, and nothing has changed since. They still don't understand the supply that we have underfoot, the potential that we have to tap that, what is being warehoused today versus the hundreds of billions of dollars that we feed into foreign countries, asking them to produce for us.
Right. And, you know, with new technology today, too, I mean, we can really turn a corner. We already have in natural gas and some of that natural gas development. And low-priced fuel, low-priced natural gas, lower-priced oil prices, it permeates the entire society. We can now look to a future, we could look to a future that will draw businesses back to the United States, will make us very competitive with other countries around the world that have lower labor costs, for example, because we can use this technology to access resources we couldn't get to a dozen years
Well, when
ago.
we talk about the environmental concerns, when we hear our president talk about that, I say it's hypocritical because we are now reliant on foreign countries that do not have the worker safety standards and do not have the environmental concerns that America has. We have the most stringent, the highest standards in the world. This is where we should be producing.
And this isn't an either or. I mean, this is, you have to have responsible development. I mean, that's it. There's nothing else than that. And this isn't saying you're walking away from that, but this is saying we have a lot of potential. Let's go for that potential.
And the president
let's
asked
make
for a
ourselves
jobs
stronger.
plan, a real jobs plan. Here it is. This is a multi-trillion-dollar jobs plan, just allowing that development. Thank you very much. We appreciate your expertise. And up next, Eric is going to reveal his plan to drive gas prices down. Can it really work? We're going to find out.
You betcha. While the Obama administration has done nothing to fix the rising cost of gasoline, I've talked about a solution for weeks. And Governor, let's talk about this a little bit. The global oil dilemma, the whole world, uses 83 million barrels of oil per day, usage. This is the amount of oil that's traded, 4 billion barrels, global oil trading. And the problem is, it's not the Saudis or the Middle East who are trading the barrels. It's not ExxonMobil or Shell who are trading the barrels. And maybe you don't know this, but the biggest traders in the world are the Wall Street banks, the banks that we bailed out with taxpayer money. It's Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Morgan, some of the other Wall Street banks and hedge funds dwarf these other people in trading. So this is where the trading's coming from. Let me explain a little bit how, Governor, if this were, each one of these pennies is 1 million barrels. This is the total amount of oil the globe uses per day.
Okay, this is consumption.
That's consumption.
All right.
Here's trading.
How much do we have there?
4 billion, 4,000 pennies. This is the amount of oil that's traded
Why
per day.
are we trading that much
day.
if we're consuming
Exactly.
only this much?
We're trading billions and billions of barrels because the Wall Street banks, the oil companies, they want to trade it. They're very actively trading. The reason is they don't have to pay a lot of money to trade. Every one of these barrels at $100 a barrel is $100,000 per contract, futures contract. These guys are able to trade very cheaply. So the
okay,
solution,
now you know a little bit about this, don't you, Eric?
I've got about 20 years experience in the trading world and in oil and gas. Can we bring in the secret, top secret? Let's go, guys.
Glad we have a top secret silver bullet here because we are criticized. I know that I am for preaching all the time, drill, baby, drill. Well, this goes beyond drill, baby, drill.
All right, if I could, can I ask you to reveal the envelope and step away so I can get this thing, flip this around?
Top secret. Beyond drill, baby, drill.
Now,
in addition to drill, baby, drill.
It doesn't replace drill, baby, drill, Governor. It's in addition to drill, baby, drill. Raise energy trading margins, margin requirements, and all energy has to be traded on an exchange. Now, bear with me, it gets a little bit technical, but the reason why so many barrels, so many billions of barrels are traded when we only need 83 million barrels a day are because the banks can trade it, because people are allowed to trade it for little or no money down. At some points, if a big bank, if a Goldman Sachs decides they want to buy oil barrels, it pushes the price up. If they sell those same oil barrels in the same day, they don't have to put a penny up to do that trade. It's a free trade for them. If they want to hold it overnight, sometimes they'll pay up $2,000, $3,000 on a contract that's worth $100,000. So, Governor, we need to make this equation a little bit more even. We need to bring this bowl down to something more reasonable.
Okay, how do we do it? How long will it take to affect positive change that we need to really affect that price of a gallon of gas, a barrel of oil?
Let me bring in the CFTC Commissioner, Bart Chilton, good friend of mine. Bart, are you there?
I'm here, Eric. Good to see you. Good to be with you, Governor.
Good to see you too, sir. Now, tell us exactly, is there anything I've said here at this chalkboard that's wrong?
Well, I can't see the chalkboard, but I've listened to you, and you know, we've talked about this before, Eric, and increasing margins is definitely a way that would limit speculation, and it's an idea that has merit. Now, it would be the government telling a private business, that is the exchanges, what they have to do specifically, so there are some people that are concerned about that. The other concern would be, and I'm not dismissing the idea certainly, and I appreciate, you know, all your history as a trader, but that if you did increase margins, who are the people that are going to stay in the markets? It's the largest traders who have the money for the margins, not the smaller guys, and it's important to have everybody in these markets. So
fair enough.
It can be a double-edged sword.
Fair enough, but let's talk a little bit. You did a study yourself, sir, did you not? Based on the amount of long speculation in the market, what is costing average Americans on a fill-up?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't want me to personally do it, Eric, but Goldman Sachs did a research paper last year, and we did some extrapolations. And here's what they say. The excessive speculation in markets equates to, if you're filling up a Civic, over $7 extra that consumers are paying. If you have an Explorer or an SUV like an Explorer, you're paying $10 extra as a Wall Street speculative premium. And if you drive a pickup like an F-150, it's $14 extra. So this is in addition to what normal supply and demand would level out prices at. And the problem is that we need to put some sort of limit on that speculation. Your idea is one way to do it.
Bart, we don't have a lot of time, but the governor asked a very, very important question. How quickly could this be implemented? And if it didn't work, how quickly could you take it off?
Well, the exchanges could do margins right now. I mean, they could take this idea and implement them, you know, tomorrow. But what I think we need to do, and what Congress told us to do, was to put caps on speculation, to limit the speculation to 10% of a market. I mean, who needs to control more than 10% of a market? And unfortunately, the Wall Street banks, Eric, have taken us to court, tried to stop us. Meanwhile, consumers and businesses alike are paying more than they should at the pumps.
Commissioner Bart Chilton, thank you very much for joining us from Little Rock.
Good to be with you.
All right, guys. All right, up next, we're going to talk to our studio audience and see where the gasoline crisis is hitting them the hardest. Great question. Welcome back. There's not a single person in America who isn't feeling the pinch from this gas and oil crisis.
Here's the deal. There is that inherent link between energy and prosperity and energy and security. Oil prices affect everything in our lives, including even where we send our sons and our daughters in war. Bottom line is we need to drill more here, where God seems to have dumped a storehouse of safe energy supply right underfoot. Developing resources here grows our economy. It decreases trade imbalance. It creates hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, and it secures our union by eliminating dependence on dangerous foreign regimes that use energy as a weapon. Access to affordable energy and ethical trade, that's the real all-of-the-above approach, and it is key to America's security. And another thing, with America's unsustainable $16+ trillion debt, there is now talk about dumping the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, and that's the international currency that's used to buy and sell oil. If that happens, folks, we're going to feel the wages of inflation everywhere, especially at the pump. That, in turn, trickles down to everything else in our economy. So it's one more reason to get our government debt under control with sound monetary policy that doesn't try to inflate away debt with currency manipulation or gimmick like quantitative easing. So we've presented the solution, and it does lead to a more peaceful and prosperous America, not subject to the whims of foreign dictators who actually use our energy insecurity to fund a lot of evil activities against us. We're asking the president if he is listening. We know that the audience is listening, and again, with their input, we have solutions to present.
Great thoughts, Governor. Sir, you told us a story. Tell us your story.
I was commanding officer of the Kuwaiti ports during the surge in 07-08, so I worked with the Kuwaiti oil minister every day, or the administration, and when the oil prices started spiking up, they talked about inflation and they talked about Wall Street. When President Bush gave us leadership and he talked about our resources, utilizing it, my Kuwaiti counterparts were talking about utilizing your resources will bring the price of oil down to $30, which actually went down lower, but it's showing the world that America has these resources and we're not using them.
What does anyone want to tell President Obama? Anybody want to have your moment in front of the president right now? Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to tell the president that my car doesn't run on hope and change. I don't know about his, but I'd certainly like to see some change.
Hope things change.
I'm from West Virginia, and we've got a lot of coal in the mountains, and that coal can be converted into liquid fuel. But it seems like the Obama administration wants to keep that coal in the ground. And like Sarah says about oil, God's given us this great resource, and we've got a lot of it in West Virginia.
You know what? That was another promise in the campaign, that we probably wouldn't see coal development, though. Joe Biden said there's no such thing as clean coal. President Obama said ultimately he'd be able to bankrupt the coal companies as they tried to produce via overregulation and burdens. We talked a little bit about the regulations.
Well, that's exactly right. If the EPA has bureaucrats setting regulations and rules that make it more expensive for us to be able to use the oil and the resources that we have, what the EPA needs to do is transparently let people know the cost that they're adding onto the price of a barrel of oil. If you have a review process, you let Congress have some oversight, you're going to stop these regulations from strangling our economy.
We talked about drilling. We've talked about natural gas. We haven't talked a lot about the EPA. Can someone tell me how many different boutique blends of fuel are required in America at any given time? Anyone?
There's over 50. There's 18 blends, but there's 3 different grades, and so there's well over 50 different individual fuels.
How about summer blend? How about winter blend? How about East Coast, West Coast, California?
They're all different.
Chicago?
There are some cities that are split down the middle where they can only use one blend in one half of a city, and these blends come in and out of quantity, so their prices go up and down depending on scarcity. And so getting rid of those boutique fuel blends, which by the way are no longer really needed to keep air quality under control, would be a way to go.
Any stories? I had someone else raise their hand.
Well,
What are you holding up there?
Yeah, it's a sticker that we're putting out on the gas pumps because the media doesn't seem to be complaining about the prices. But when Obama was sworn in, gas prices were $1.83 a gallon. And as we all know, we're paying more than $2 a gallon, more than that. So the Tea
Anyone
Party
know how
is
many
putting
gallons
out
of gasoline we use every year in America? Anyone up there? You guys know? 139 billion?
Absolutely right.
$139 billion. So if the price is up $2, what is that? $278 billion a year more.
We cannot afford more of this. We cannot afford more.
And the average family between food and fuel is paying $1,500 more per year than they were a few years ago.
Well, we got to go. We ran out of time. It's great stuff, you guys. Governor, over here.
Very good.
That's it for us tonight. We're going to say thank you to the governor for co-hosting with me. Thank you so much, Governor.
You're welcome.
All right, we want to hear from you, so please hop on Twitter and send us tweet using the hashtag #PayingAtThePump. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.